Hello, you wonderful, wonderful people, and welcome to episode The Holders of the Europa League of the Blacktown Football Hour podcast. My name is Mark DePoli, your currently under-caffeinated podcast host, and it is May the 4th. May the 4th be with you, of course. And remember, the next time that you think up a multi-billion-dollar movie franchise, it doesn't always need a sequel trilogy. Cue the intro music. Hey, just quickly, before I tell you the volunteer of the week, this is a reminder that we're currently, as of me saying this sentence, on 799 subscribers. Now, what I need you to do, okay, is I need you to be that person, step up, be that person who makes it 800. I want you to press that button and see that number become 800 and feel that satisfaction. And if you're the person who makes it 801 or 802, I'm proud of you. Thank you for doing that. Like this video, like the Facebook post that brought you here as well. Please, Volunteer of the Week time. The Volunteer of the Week competition visited Glendinning Reserve this week, and Doonside's recipient is Kim Hewitt. I will now speak the words of Club President Sean O'Connor regarding Kim's outstanding contributions over the last couple of years. Kim Hewitt is a new member of our committee this year and is our equipment manager. With a large increase in player numbers this season, Kim had her work cut out for her putting together 49 new kits for teams within the Hawks Nation's 600 plus players. A new initiative introduced by Kim, who also runs our Hawks store for all our players' equipment needs, was the addition of a range of refreshments and various foods on training nights for our guests and members. Displaying a genuine love for the game, backed up by her dependability, a positive attitude, and flexibility adapting to new roles, makes Kim a great asset of any club. The photo supplied depicts Kim as matchday official last Saturday in the rain and is a mark of her commitment to our sport and Doonside Hawks Soccer Club. Kim is supported in her role by husband Sean and children Connor and Phoebe. She is the only member of her family who is not a registered player. Doonside Hawks Soccer Club is always looking for volunteers for many roles in our club, from as little as 1 hour a month or to more regular roles. We are proud of Kim and her family as they make our club a welcoming and supportive environment for all our members and guests. Kim, it's lovely to hear that. It's the first time I've read through it and read it out in full. What a wonderful set of things that you do for the club. And it's such a big club as well, so I know how hard people work there, and for you to be the standout among many standouts is just fantastic. From the BDSFA to you, thank you. For the rest of the episode, ahead of two Blacktown-based men's and women's Premier League Match of the Round live streams this weekend, we will be roundhousing rumours and finally hearing the truth on some pretty major off-season drama with two clubs that begin with the letter P. It's a pretty Premier League-centric podcast this week, but I do know that there are so many fans who need that fix, that Premier League drama fix every now and then. So today I am feeding the masses. You'll hear from Ropes Crossing's brand new coach, Tony Muscat, followed by Lee Dryland and John Sarkos as two players from their Match of the Round rivals this weekend in Prospect. Then some familiar faces return. It's the combo duo of the WPL and Maddie and Jason from Winston Hills Bears. Interspersed between the four different interviews will be some results and other important information. So without further ado, let's move into that first set of results. Most importantly, after last week's episode featuring Ropes Crossing, in the over 30s Women's Division 1, Ropes beat Ropes. But which Ropes, Mark? Ropes Whites. That was Aislin's team, if you do remember, not Craig's team. The white side of Strikers won 2-1 late on in that Friday night game, so they did finally concede their first goal of the season. However, they did maintain their 4-from-4 record to start the year, putting an end to the other perfect start of their red-tinted Strikers compatriots. What fun. And I was really happy to receive that text that one of the teams had come away with a win. In the Deploy Premier League 2, Quakers Tigers lost 3-2 to Glenwood on a night when the West Tigers won in the NRL, so that kind of just makes sense in my head, I guess. Only one Tigers can win per week. Spurs put 3 unanswered goals past Polonia as Oakville beat Minchinbury 4-2 in the Match of the Round. Let's analyse the goals, shall we? And to be honest, we could have been analysing about 25 goals in this game, a crazy one with chances of plenty at either end for both teams. In the end, we just and I say just lightly, had 6. We'd seen it plenty of times now where the keeper's hoofed forward clearance has ended up being a defender's nightmare and a striker's dream. Tarkan Chalai pumped this one forward to Griffin Jacobs, whose finish was as good as his haircut, and it's a good haircut. Emmanuel Issa for Oakville is the one who allowed it to bounce. Yes, I understand it's difficult for you to see, but just believe me, maybe this is the moment where all defenders should look at this and start sitting a little deeper when the ball comes out of the keeper's hands. Certainly cannot let the ball to bounce at any cost. It was another slip at the back that allowed Mwene Malenja to find his first goal of the day. The flick-on was good by Wilkins, but very unlike Brenton Salmon to slip in that position, although it was very wet out there. And the finish was still very cute. 1-1, we were tied. This one here, admittedly, was a bit ridiculous. A back three system should never allow this to happen. Mifsud, Malenja and Logan Wilkins were all somehow free. It was the latter who took it round the goalkeeper, who had a relatively simple finish to put his side in front as the rain started to come down heavier. Manjot Batal dropped deep here to facilitate play, but then gave the ball away. Kwaku Asare was beaten to it too, so Shakuru Malenja, who has PL1 written all over him by the way, played this great ball to Elamani Shabani, who had the time to pick out the bottom left-hand corner, but in all seriousness, despite the great finish, yes, he was left completely unmarked, and he has another major goal contribution to a match of the round game in 2023. Zal Maran and Manjot Batal actually did incredibly well for this goal, with the pacey Griffin Jacobs sent through again, who got there ahead of the goalkeeper, then beat Issa again for good measure, and passed it into an empty net to make it a 5-goal first half. The keepers 100% got to win that ball there next time. You cannot let that go through you by hook or by crook. Stop it. Unfortunately, due to a technical error, I cannot show you the 4th goal of Oakville because reasons. But it was Mwene Malenja who did it again, dribbling through a few and getting his deserved brace. He'd done it so many times and come close to scoring. He finally did score. Top player. Really top player. Right. Time for some interviews. Let's meet Ropes' new coach. Our special guest for episode 9 of the Blacktown Football Hour podcast is Tony Muscat. He's come in as the new head coach at Ropes Crossing Strikers and their Premier League side, and he's the only managerial change that we've had so far in our deployed Premier League 1 or 2 competitions, and that's not an easy job to walk into at a level like this and come to terms with the new team, especially when you haven't been involved in any capacity prior with Ropes Crossing. And he's here to talk about that. He's a very experienced coach, someone who loves the game, and even though I've only just met him in the last 20 minutes or so, I've learned a great deal about how much he loves football. So I'm sure he is the right man to take them forward, but we're going to unpack that a little bit, what it means to be an incoming coach who steps in midway through the season, and I think there's a lot to learn from this if you're thinking once again about coaching, or if you're thinking about maybe I could step into a team that needs a coach midway through a season. We're at the least windy part of Blacktown Football Park today, so you have to forgive the visuals, but I'm just trying to escape the wind. But just generally, Tony, thanks very much for joining us here on the podcast. It's nice to meet you. What I will start with as I hand you this microphone is I want to know about your coaching career from day dot up to the point where you got that phone call from Adam Hardis, the club president.
Thank you, Mark. Started my coaching career in 1996 over at Nepean, doing the 13s in the youth league. Went along to Blacktown Association in 1994, 95. Stayed there till about 2000. Went over to seniors over at Mount Pritchard and did a few years there, and then moved over back to Blacktown Spartans when they started at Blacktown Spartans, and did the 17s, where they were called 17s then, they were 18s now. Then I went over to CSI Schofields, did their 20s and got a gig doing first grade in 2010. Unfortunately, work got in the way and I had to go and work overseas for 10 years and just come back about 6 months ago. Unfortunately, I had to do, like I said to you, a hip replacement. Did a hip replacement this year. President of Ropes Crossing, Adam Hardis, has approached me and asked me if I was interested of doing a coaching role as head coach of the first grade over at Ropes Crossing. That was 4 weeks ago. I jumped at the occasion, and I'm really happy and looking forward to working more with the crew that I've got.
So you'll come to know pretty quickly that Ropes Crossing is a team that have only, as a club entity, have only existed for just less than a decade now. But last year they had 13 teams in grand finals. They're actually the standout club across all age groups in terms of their grand final representation. So a club that just seems to be doing the right things across all levels, which is a really positive thing on the ropes end. What is it that convinced you to jump onto this ship? Because I'm aware that Adam has been aware of your existence as a coach for a long, long time. You've obviously got a sort of a relationship with him in that sense. You've worked with him. So talk to me about how easily convinced you were to jump on this Premier League ropes crossing team.
Well, Mark, it's a young club. I've been monitoring the club for the last 6 years, I think. They've been going for about 6 years. And I'm really impressed with a lot of teams that they've got going. I've always wanted to be involved somehow in the club. When Adam told me that he was starting a club, it's the environment, how everybody's really friendly. You get there Saturday mornings. I'd like to get there Saturday mornings. The last month I began there about 8:30 in the morning just to see a lot of games, so I can put the face to people, and everybody has welcomed me with open arms. It's a really good club to be around with, so I don't have any problems with settling in.
Very good to hear indeed. So apologies for that. That's the part of the wind that I was talking to you guys about. There are doors slamming all around the place. So talk to me about that very first session, sort of even just the chronological events of that first day. So do you walk into a change room and you get introduced to the lads who sort of hold your hand through that first process? Is it just all entirely up to you? And talk to me about that very first session on about a month ago.
Yeah, it was weird actually to say it. That it reminded me more of just, it took me back where it used to be when I used to coach and we walked into a new club. They gave you a new team, but the weird part about it is they had already been selected, they had already been played, they've already played 2 games in the competition. So I really had to get to the root of things, where the main people, the captain, the vice captain, a few other senior players have been in the club for a while, and I just started getting little information from Monday to Saturday, getting that information, took it all on board, and then come match day, I knew who to pick, I knew who were the right players to go in the right positions. Of course, they've got a technical director, Timmy Aiken, so I spend a lot of time with him from the time they put me on to Saturday morning to get the team going. And actually, it wasn't a bad day. We ended up coming home with 1-1 against Quakers Hill, so it wasn't too bad.
When you step into what is a relatively high level at a Premier League team, obviously when I'm talking about English Premier League here, we're talking about our local Premier League, but it is still a high level where players have played at semi-professional level before. You're walking into a change room with different personalities, different viewpoints on how the game should be played. There's a set culture usually, whether it's a good or bad one. There's also a social hierarchy that you've got to try and work out and try and keep as many people in that one sort of group as you can. And of course, there's a lot of opinions on when you become not an interim coach, but a coach that comes in the middle of the season. You've got to work around that. Some people might agree with the change, some people might not, and that's difficult. That's really difficult at all levels, so I commend anyone that has the bravery to do that. Now, I've got no doubt, because of your experience and the time that you've spent in football, that this is something that you're very capable of, but was that difficult when you stepped into that changing room and you sort of observed those sort of things, like the opinions on the change of coach, or the sort of the culture of the group? I'm not asking for you to call anybody out, but just did you notice some things and think, okay, I can definitely work with this?
Yes, there was. First of all, when you walk into a change room and you're new, you try not to change as much things as possible. You leave everything as it is and you see how it's working. If it's working, it's great. If it's not, you try to tweak it and fix it. You don't go into a club which has been trialling and doing everything since November, and come 2 games into the competition, and then you go and turn everything upside down. You leave everything alone, you try to fix it slowly, and the most important thing for me When I walked in the change rooms, I had a look at everybody to see who wasn't happy in place. If they're all happy, you don't touch anything. You leave it alone. Yeah.
That's very interesting, and good to know that you're able to not rock the boat too much. And I got a question specifically about rocking the boat or setting the ship a little bit later on. Now, unbeknownst to me, there was reasons why the previous coach was here. I've actually had a chat to him very recently, as in last night. There wasn't any malice involved or any sort of sour taste left in the mouth. It was just the change that suited him best. But at the end of the day, it was still 2 games into the season, and you've actually spent double the time that he did as a coach in competitive fixtures. So that's a very, very early change, and one that I actually wasn't aware of until very recently. So in terms of the responsiveness or the response of the players to you, did you notice that they were on board straight away, or were they a little bit confused with what was going on?
I believe they were on board straight away. They like I said, they welcomed me with open arms. What happened, I don't know, and I don't want to know. They tried to tell me things, but I said, I don't want to know. I just want you guys to be happy and to adjust to the different changes. The only different change there will be is the previous coach played this system, I play my system. So we're still working through that. It's taken us 4 weeks, but I believe as from last week we played against Workers, the system's coming along really well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that was certainly a very entertaining game, that one. And we will talk about that a little bit later. Now, in terms of rocking the boat or settling the ship, that's the phrase I just used in the previous question. So were you given an instruction to go in and change things drastically, or were you advised to do more of the calming sort of settling work? What was the advice you were given, if any at all?
I didn't get any of that at all. It was just my way of doing things, calming things, steady the ship. If it starts to rock, you steady it again. Don't disturb anything. Don't break something that doesn't need fixing.
Fantastic. Now, again, I apologise for the wind that you can hear at the moment. It's just the nature of the time that we're recording today, and that there's no place to sort of record around it. But it is what it is, and we move forward. Now, Ropes are one of 3 teams who are winless at the moment. The good thing about you guys is that you have 3 points on the board. You're not sitting last. And in terms of, I'll use a terrible analogy, in terms of Graham Potter levels of walking into a board meeting and saying we're in crisis talks to the media, yeah, you're not in that. This is a different level, and there's more room for improvement. You're also versing a team this weekend who are looking for their first win. So there's no crisis talk like that. I can imagine it would be ludicrous, in my opinion, if that was the case. But at the end of the day, Ropes still want to win their first game. Now, you guys have come close. You've had some draws with some fantastic teams. To be perfectly honest with you, Workers who were very good, and Quakers who were very good as well. So there's definitely some positives to take. But more specifically, I want to talk about how you play football. So that system that you mentioned was being played. You haven't had a pre-season at all to implement that, so that's really difficult. You have to go off what was taught and try and shift that after only 2 game weeks. It's now been a month. You've had it, and this will be your 4th game. But let's talk about that system a little bit. Let's go in depth about how you want to play and why you think that's the way to go.
Okay, I've noticed that when I first taken over, they seem to be a little bit undeciding and not sure what to do. So it's taken me a good 2 weeks to drum it into the players that I play flowing football, pressing forward, and don't hold back. Don't think about what you got to do. Let's do what you feel like you're doing. Let's be happy on the ball. Let's go forward with the ball. Let's not muck about. I felt like they were mucking about with the ball. They didn't care. I don't know what it was, but I'm working on that. I'm working on my philosophy of football is enjoy while you're out there, go forward and play football and score.
Now, Ropes, in terms of the match of the round performances, are a team who have actually done pretty well in years gone by. So last year they had they scored 3 goals up against Riverstone, if my memory serves me completely correctly, which was also at the fair that they're doing this weekend. So that was 2022's version of the fair. Joey scored 2 goals in that game, for example. There was also a 1-1 very earlier on in the season against the champions. I'm not sure if you're around that just yet, but there's already been a match of the round that they've been a part of. and they played well. They showed that they can be very competent defensively, but again, that was under a different coach, so a different system you can expect to see come Saturday, 6 p.m. Personally, when I watch this Ropes team in years gone by, and even in the game that I've already seen so far under the old coach, I have thought to myself, this is a team with potential. I see some really positive physical players, and I see some players with good technical ability. We did an all-star match, for example, and there were some Ropes players that were involved in that up against the Spartans back in January. So there's definitely some talent. But what are the expectations you have of the team? Is it to finish in the top 5, which is finals finishing spots, or is it something else that may be a little bit less tangible that you want to achieve this year?
Mark, obviously I want to finish up the top 5 or better. I'm not here just to fill the shoes of someone else. I'm not here just to waste my time. I'm here to win, and that was one of the few things I've said to the players when I first got into the coaching and got into the dressing room 4 weeks ago, and I said to Ropes, I'm not here just to waste your time. Yeah, I'm here to score goals for you guys, to win. You got to remember that I'm not here to waste my time. I'm here to win. Yep.
Now, the interesting thing about Ropes is that they have an upper mid-table defensive record so far. Now, that's maybe affected by the outlier that was the most recent game. It was a 4-all, so that's a crazy game. But pretty much half of the goals you've considered this year have come from that one game. So that's, perhaps you can call that an outlier, but we've had a few of those games this year, so maybe it's becoming the norm. Anyway, so you've had a very good defensive record, but the goal-scoring record is the third worst in the league, and third last is where Ropes is sitting right now. You're coming up against a team who newly promoted. You've not faced them before, so I'm not expecting you to be able to delve into their style of play. And also they have new and incoming players, so they're a totally different side to the ones that were premiers of the PL2 last year. So, but at the same time, this is a 6-pointer in the sense that this is two teams who haven't won yet and are certainly going to want to in front of a big match of the round crowd. So how are you going to go about that as a first time sort of match of the round featuring coach? With just settling nerves, but also saying to your boys that this is a real opportunity to grab your first 3-point haul of the season.
Yeah, look, I've been working all week this week on this game, to tell you the truth. I'm on the same line as you are. We do need a belt. We need a win under our belt. We do need one. And that's by working hard. Unfortunately, we didn't do much on yesterday because the grounds were closed, so we did some physical work. Tomorrow will be more technical and focusing very, very hard and drumming in the players that we do need to pick up the 3 points. Not only just for the sake of picking up the 3 points, but for the history of the club, yes.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be a great occasion. Ropes, of course, are having their annual fair at Ropes Crossing Reserve. It's their home game, of course. Prospect always have a lot of fans who are willing to come along, and for their first match of the round of the year, I'm sure they're going to be G'd up for this one. Again, sorry about the wind. That's probably the worst gust that we've had all afternoon. But Tony, in terms of your involvement today, it's been fantastic. It's been lovely to meet you and introduce you to the match of the round listeners and also the Blacktown Football Hour podcast listeners. I thank you very much for your time. I can't wait to see the starting 11, and as your commentator for that game, I can't wait to get around that and see what Ropes are capable of this year and see this new style of football. I think it'll be great. But again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much.
Welcome back. Good to have you. It was very good to meet Tony, but now it's time for some PL1 results. Riverstone continued on from that momentum of winning that incredible comeback at this venue against Quakers by losing 7-0 to Eastern Creek. I don't know what happened there. I don't understand. Such a turnaround, and I was a little disappointed to see that. Quakers actually turned things around with a 3-0 win over the winless Parkley. Workers and Ropes were tied 4-4 come the final whistle in an incredible game. Marion extended their lead with a 5-1 thrashing of Doonside to keep them at the top of the table. Wow. Ponds only needed 1 goal to beat Prospect in a very close game. Speaking of Prospect, let's finally talk about those rumours that have been circulating around since the start of the season. We're back in the same spot that we spoke to Prospect last year for the Blacktown Football Hour podcast. This time they're in a new division, a new competition, new faces and new expectations. Although it hasn't all been going just their way just yet in the season, what is on the table doesn't always tell the full story. And so we're here to unpack a bit of that full story and also quash some rumours and learn some truths about the reserve grade side as well. I'm joined by John Sarkos, who's one of the many sons of Peter Sarkos, the coach, and also the returning, of course, Lee Dryland. You on your debut, you've been here plenty of times, so you know how this works and all the shebang that goes with it. Boys, just generally, thanks very much for joining us here on the podcast on a cold Wednesday night. I appreciate it.
Thanks, fellas.
Let's start with the one that I think everybody would be dying if I didn't ask you guys about, this, considering this is your first time on the podcast this year. Rumours have been circling about the reserve grade side and the very successful reserve grade side of last year, probably by my own admittance and words, one of the best sides we've ever seen in reserve grade in the PL2. Then you lost some of that to a different side. So you're more involved with that reserve grade side, John. So tell me everything you want to know. You can be as truthful as you'd like. You can name names. You can do whatever you like, but just be wary that they'll be watching. And people tend to watch this and hold you to your word. So you go how you'd like to explain it and let us know what happened.
Yeah, so basically last year we had a great season. We were killing it, really. We got to the final. Obviously, everyone knows what happened there. Then, obviously, season ended. We all went back to where we went. Then everyone came to the trials. All good. Started training. Then we started to get word of people going to the ponds. So we heard that was happening. In between all this, we had to get rid of the keeper that we had in reserve grade, just due to commitment. We couldn't get in contact with him, so we decided to sign a new keeper. Then we started getting the word of them going to the ponds, so we sort of didn't confront anyone yet. We just sort of said it openly at training, and obviously no one wanted to say anything. It was no one. Then I spoke to someone that I know from the ponds that I've known for a while. They sort of said they'll have a look, they'll see. They don't know, obviously, any of our boys just yet. And he sort of came back to me and said, yeah, there's about 5 or 6 of them that are there trialling. He goes, obviously, the main one they're looking at is Blake. Obviously, he's a standout. And then I sort of messaged one of the boys and said, what's happening? You know, we've heard this and this. They told me, nah, it's all good. We wouldn't leave you this close to the season. Mind you, it was only 2 weeks before the season started. Then next training session, I heard that they signed, about 6 of them. And then just got a message one day that saying yes, it was us, and that was it. They left the group chat, and we didn't hear from them till the first game of the season.
That must be frustrating when you're trying to play in a team at any level. The commitment of your players going into the new season is something that you need to be very on top of, and for that to happen 2 weeks before the season starting is difficult. So I don't envy you guys in that way, and it's such a shame because we've so long talked about the type of people in the prospect squad, certain standards of character and togetherness, and it's a shame to see that sort of armour was dented a little bit. Certainly when I heard those rumours start to circulate. It's good to know that you guys still have the respect to speak about them in a nice way and sort of not call them out in that way, which I think is good, because at the end of the day we all just want to kick a ball on a park, don't we, come Saturday nights. So that's very good. But I just want to know from a sort of personal and emotional perspective, when you're sitting there and you've been made promises, then you ask and get made more promises, and then all of a sudden you're staring at a Facebook Messenger or a WhatsApp chat, and all of a sudden you see X, Y, and Z has left. Did you guys sit in the group chat and start texting back and forth what the hell is going on, or were you just was it quiet? What was the reaction like from everyone after that happened?
Yeah, well, I sort of knew probably 3-4 days before it happened. So we had already started looking for players, signing players, because we sort of knew it was going to happen. Whether they made the ponds or not, that didn't really bother us. They weren't coming back regardless. We just saw it as, that's not what you do to, and we had a good team. Like everyone was happy. Well, what we thought, everyone was happy. And yeah, we just we got rid of anyone extra that was hanging around in the chat that could sort of, let them know what's going on. And yeah, that was it really. And it wasn't like we lost, just anyone. We lost two of our leading goal scorers, and I think together, like Blake and Nicola, they probably had 40, 50 goals.
I think sorry to cut in. I think the hardest part to digest as well was we had a lot of people come to trials. We had big amounts, and we did a lot of cutting during that phase because we already had numbers, and some of those kids that came down, blokes that came down, were quality, but we just didn't have the room for it. A lot of the boys that came back, a lot of boys that came back from last year obviously got first preference, so we did a lot of cutting and dropping and all that. And then for this to occur 6 weeks later, it was a bit of a kick in the guts. But
sometimes it's hard for kids that are young, because obviously that reserve grade side was majorly quite young, and from what you've told me, that hasn't been disclosed on here, but it sounds like a lot of them were young kids as well, and they wouldn't understand that process. Not that makes it any better, but the frustrations for senior people like you or the coaching staff or the selectors is way more apparent. So it's good of you to not name names. Had they have made a reserve grade grand final, or should they make a reserve grade grand final, we'll obviously get to hear the crossover from those who made it last year up against Eastern Creek in the PL2 reserve grade grand final if they make it this year. However, perhaps you've dented their hopes a little bit. You had a 4-2 win over them in the reserve grade, so your brand new squad against half of what was yours last year. Tell me a little bit about that game.
So obviously that was a big game that we were all waiting for. Obviously wanted to see how we went against them. We ended up getting up I think we were 2-0 up. They came back 2-2 at half time, I think 2-2, and then we ended up finishing at 4-2. But yeah, in saying that, them leaving, we strengthened the team straight away. It was obviously, it's a bit harder now, trying to get this team to gel like we had them last year. We had played together the whole season, and we obviously had a good enough team to dominate in that PL2 comp. But yeah, this year it's obviously a lot different. Teams are a lot better, but I think we got the team to do it.
Very good. Thank you for the way you've explained that, especially for your first time on the podcast as well. It was really well done. What I want to focus on now is the match of the round this weekend. A true 6-pointer in every sense of the word, and you would have already heard from Ropes, because they are considered the home side, so this would be happening second chronologically in the podcast when it does get released. You guys, 5 games, the 1 draw. Basically, your record for goal difference is 1 goal scored, 2 goals conceded, so you're 5 scored and 10 conceded at the moment. A couple of very close games though, and I want to find out if what's going wrong, because we have big expectations. I'm sure you guys did as well, but from what you tell me, it's quite close. So that singular point that you guys have picked up has been from against the team that are coming first right now in Marion, and that was a 2-2 draw down there at Anne Aquilina. Lee, you're out there in the middle of the park though. What's not clicking exactly right at the moment?
A couple of things, Mark. I think we're beating ourselves at the moment. We hold ourselves high in gaining results and where we should be and that. So when we're not hitting our target or our mark, we sort of, we get very frustrated with ourselves. We know we can do better. It's early days, but each game so far we've been in it, for 90 minutes. We're not getting smashed off the park. A little bit of inconsistency. We'll play brilliant for 20 minutes, switch off for 10, may concede 2 goals in that 10 minutes, and then we're sort of backs up against the wall, and then we're fighting. So most of the games this year, apart from Marion, obviously we've either lost by 1 or 2 there with workers, but it's confidence as well. So. And it's just putting away our chances at the moment. So we don't get many in PL1 now as much as what we used to in PL2. So we've got to make sure that we put those chances away when they come, because you don't know when the next one's going to be. in a game. So
Yeah, so 2-0 Workers, obviously Workers way, 1-0 Ponds, which was Ponds way. So you're not at all getting blown out of the park. There have been some crazy results so far from the teams who are on similar points bases to you right now, and that's not happening to you. You only need to look at goal difference in the history of the results so far to know that that's the case. So there is certainly the potential for that to go and be the other way. And as you've said, you're missing a couple of chances, and maybe last year you would have had more chances to get those chances into the back of the net. So what I do want to talk about in terms of last year to this year is the side that came up with you. They were yellow and green in Eastern Creek. They've scored a minimum of 3 goals every game. They've also conceded a minimum of 3 goals every game. They're a crazy team to watch. You guys had a game up against them. It was 4-3, another crazy game. Now, to compare the 2 promoted teams, what I want to do with this, they're up in second or third place right now, and flying, and props to them. Is there really second place to third last difference between you guys in terms of the performance? Have they recruited that much better than you, or what's going wrong?
I don't think so. It's early days, obviously. In a comp like this, it's good to get off to a great start. We all know that, so that's what I mean. We're a little bit frustrated that we haven't collected 3 points so far, because we have literally probably deserved 3 points in 1 or 2 of the games. But it is what it is. That's football. They're a tough side, Creek. They're our bogey side. We know that. I think it's a mental thing every time we come up against Creek now. We sort of reflect on the past and what we've gone through with Creek over the last probably 2 years. So we were up for the game over their home ground a couple of weeks ago. That game had everything. There was tension. It was feisty. It was goals, cracking goals on either side. So red cards, yellow cards, you name it. So discipline that day for us got the better of us, no doubt about that. So again, I think that might be just because the history that we've got with Creek. So it is what it is. It was a missed opportunity to sort of get one back on them, considering what they did to us here on grand final night. That it burned a bit what they did that night, but we've got to move on with it. It's as simple as that. And I'm glad to see Creek come up with us. I think it was rewarding that they got the opportunity to come up with us. They have been up there with us the last 2 years, and for good reason. They're a quality side. They've got some big boys, some skillful boys, and they gel pretty much as well as anyone I've ever seen. So it is what it is. Round 2, see if we can get some points back off them.
I'm going to break the fourth wall a little bit. Don't look at the camera directly because it's going to blind you. Sorry about that. Let's return back. Just look underneath it and you'll be fine. I promise you. You'll get used to it really quick. John, I'm going to ask you actually, in terms of the performance, what's been the best from the first grade so far this season? You've got 5 games to choose from. One of them is where obviously picked up a point against Marion, who were first. But was that actually their best game of the season in round 1, or has there been better performances since then? Take your pick.
Yeah, I think the Marion game, that was probably the standout game. We've played them before. We have played them before in
Cotton Cup, right?
Cotton Cup, yeah. And that was an unbelievable game as well. I'd probably say that game. It just looked like it was working. But same with every other game. It's literally that one goal, and I think we're not putting them away. And like Lee said, you don't get that many chances in the PL1. So you might get 2-3 chances a game, and if you're not putting them away, you're going to end up behind.
Yeah.
I think the Marion game, but yeah, every other game's been good too.
Okay, very good.
Just on that though, I think we haven't been putting goals away. We've been creating chances, but I think we've also haven't had the same back line all year so far. So there's a bit of chopping and changing, with injuries and suspensions and things like that. So it's just trying to get that stability in that first grade side. So, some of the goals that we have conceded, we're better than that. We know that. So we've just got to tighten up at the back a little bit. And, we're not getting blown off the park. We're losing by a goal here or there. Tighten that up a little bit, put away our chances, and, we'll start collecting 3 points each.
I don't think we've played with a full team in both sides yet.
Okay.
We've had injuries. We've had
It is
people
what
not
it
show
is.
up.
Yeah. I'm not looking for excuses. I'm not making any. We just know we're just beating ourselves at the moment. So
Our free kick specialist Alec hasn't
yeah,
been there.
yeah, he's
So
finally back. So
that's
if we
a
do
big thing
get
too.
30-yard free kick somewhere, we know it's going in the back of the net, which is good. But yeah, new keeper, a couple of new boys in first grade, a whole new reserve grade. 21s, they've started to gel and find their feet. They're on 2 wins in a row now, so they struggled at the beginning. Whole new side again, so is what it is. But we can't keep making excuses. I think now's the time to really sort of knuckle down and start getting some points on the board. So otherwise, we're not going to catch up.
Yeah, very good to hear. At about a quarter way through the season, no better time to do it against a team who are also in the same sort of situation as you. Funnily enough, it actually appears that I'm definitely wrong in saying this, but it feels like the bottom half of the table teams haven't played against each other yet. So it's been very, like, you haven't played against a Parkley, you haven't played against Riverston just yet. So
No,
they're-
we've had,
Top teams.
yeah, we've
Yeah.
got apart from Doonside, we've had Marion Ponds and
Yeah.
Workers and Quakers.
so it's very
they
hard
were all
to
up there last year. So.
it's very hard to sort of see who might sort of creep up into that 5th spot, and that final spot for finals is different to top 4 last year. Bigger comp, so top 5 go through to the finals. So Ropes, now they've got 3 draws, so they're 2 points ahead of you guys on 3 points to your 1. Now that could be for a whole different set of reasons, but they have their own improvements to make, and as you'll see, what I've already seen on this podcast, they have a new coach, so a different system to what they would have presented in the match of the round up against Doonside in that scoreless draw here at BFP Synth 1. Now you've never played up against Ropes. You haven't faced them yet this season. Do you think now is actually a very good time to come up against a team who haven't won a game? Considering that you guys also haven't won a game, are you looking forward to this being a kickstart for your season?
The thing is, the last couple of weeks we've spoken about today's the day we're going to get 3 points, and then we don't get the 3 points, and our head drops a little bit, and then we go into the next week game, and same situation, and we're unlucky. So yeah, look, is it an opportunity to get the first 3 points of the year? Definitely, but every week has been, every week has been. But it's big this week because for us, we can start getting a little bit of a rhythm going and hopefully a bit of a streak going. So we do get Ranger back this week, I think, who was suspended, so which is good because unfortunately I'm out for a couple of weeks. Big Alex is back and stuff like that. So and like I said before, there's moments in games where we look brilliant. We're moving the ball, we're passing, our combinations are working, and then we sort of just drop our head a little bit and step off the pedal a little bit. So we just got to learn to play for 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the chance we'll get to see who comes away potentially with their first win, could be another draw to add to the list, will be, of course, at Ropes Crossing Reserve come 6 p.m. Saturday. Boys, as usual, great debut, by the way. Thanks very much for joining us once again. It's always great to have a chat to the prospect boys.
One
as
last
Ben.
word, always.
Very good.
We miss you, Danny.
Is he still around? He's still in the reserve grade team?
Apparently he's busy.
He
Apparently
was,
He's too busy for this now. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
He was meant to come tonight actually, but he's gone to training. Yeah, so we're back training.
Yes.
Maybe that's why we're not.
Yeah.
That's why it's not working.
Stop
Yeah,
training.
so-
yeah.
We're gonna maybe get rid of that and see if that starts working. But yeah, Danny's at training and he'll be sweating it out there.
Well, I know he won that cricket grand final a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago now, but maybe his head's in the wrong sport. No, we're good to see Danny on the podcast once again later on in the season.
Yeah, he's sent us his highlight reel of cricket.
Really?
Yeah, he's got a highlight reel of cricket,
any good?
highlight reel of saves.
Okay.
So we get that every couple of months.
Yep.
Danny's good to have in the team.
Very good. And I'll be sure to watch him in the reserve grade when I turn up to Ropes Crossing Reserve a couple of hours early and chat to all you guys as I always do. But thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Good to finally quash those rumours. I'm sure we'll hear about it from Pons' perspective when we see them later on in the year, though. Parkley in the Women's Premier League picked up their first win of the season with a 2-0 win over fellow Blacktown-based club Marion. Norwest destroyed Quakers Juniors 4-0, and Winston Hill's time with Kellyville 1-1 in the match of the round. Are you ready for some more analysing? Because it's coming your way whether you like it or not. It was a day of absolutely incredible goals at Valentine Sports Park. On 28 minutes for Kellyville, Bianca Hogan picked up this one outside of the box, beat the oppressor with one smooth first touch, then took another to steady herself before absolutely rifling this past the goalkeeper. A seriously high-level, technically proficient goal. This is what the people came to see. On a different day, that slide tackle that came in stops that shot from ever happening in the first place, but otherwise, Winston Hills were pretty good defensively throughout the entire day. It did, however, take until the 88th minute for them to find an equaliser, but far out was it an insane strike. Look at this absolute rocket from distance. Nothing any keeper in the league could do about that, and Winston Hills capped off their best performance of the season with a point ahead of this weekend's match of the round with Quakers. Wow, wow, wow. Right, speaking of the Women's Premier League, time to say good day to the combo duo of Quakers Hill once again. Well, it hasn't been too long since we've had Quakers Hill Juniors on the podcast ahead of a Women's Premier League match of the round, and we're blessed to have them on once again. It was only just a fortnight ago when they had that very good score draw with Park Lee in the Blacktown Derby, as you might remember. But since then, they've had another game, which we'll talk about, and they've got another one up this weekend. And again, it's in a match of the round format. I'm joined by Jamie and Mario Cumbo, who, of course, are the captain and coach of this Quakers Hill Juniors side. Guys, just once again, genuinely, thanks very much for joining us. Jamie, let's start with you. How have you pulled up from the weekend? Are you feeling good still?
Yeah, I mean, after our result, it was a bit hard to take, but I think considering the numbers we had on the day and just sort of, I guess the pressure might have got a little bit to us, but I think overall we sort of taken out of the result that we just need to work harder and try and come out bigger and better.
Absolutely. And Mario, before we sort of get into the crux of that most recent result, which didn't go quite your way, I think we'll start with the match of the round, because there were some real massive positives to take out of that in that score draw that you guys had. So, look, coming into that game, both teams had pretty similar results in two sets of draws each, and you were pretty close to coming away with, I guess, certainly last year would have considered it maybe a famous victory, but less so this year, because you guys and your work in particular have made this club and this team come so far in such a short amount of time, and that's a massive credit to you. The way I'll ask you this, as I mentioned as we were off camera, their goal was just an incredible one, a crazy one, and one that took the breath away of everyone who was watching. So do you think that without that sort of 1 in a million moment, you guys would have been on course to win that game?
Oh, yeah, look, I mean, those things happen in football, and you've just got to accept them, and you've got to applaud that somebody is audacious enough to take a shot from the angle that she was at. And, I take my hat off to her in the way that she took the goal. And, it was very good for the spectators, not so good for the coach. It was a bit of a coach killer in the 75th minute, when you thought you've got this game pretty much sewn up, and then to get that goal against you, it's just, it was a bit hard to take. But to be fair, it was probably a very even game, and I'm sure they would have been disappointed if they would have came away without points, and we're probably a little bit disappointed that we weren't able to hold on to the score that we had. So,
for sure. I think your goal in particular was, like, in the first couple of minutes of the game. It was amazing. You've got a real weapon, as I harped on about. I waxed lyrical about the power of Ella Wilson's kick out of the hands. It was a serious asset, and I think it'll come to your advantage plenty of times throughout the season. So that goal in itself, it comes out of the keeper's hands, it bounces twice, and then Marion Schroeder has a really good chance to finish, and she does. In terms of the way you guys started that game, you must have been pretty happy.
Oh, I was. And look, we've generally started very well in most of our games, and and that was that's a typical Marion goal. I think that's what she does well. And look, credit to Ella. I mean, it was a great kick, and I think the bounce on the surface is probably a little bit different and a bit unexpected for the defenders. And we capitalised on that, and then I think they changed up their defence a little bit, but we didn't capitalise on what was happening there, and which I thought was probably our chance to actually maybe hurt them a little bit more than what we did, but we just didn't capitalise with the centre back sitting so back. But anyway, that's something that we've got to work on, and they're both good assets. Ella with her kicking and Marion with her speed up front. So
absolutely. Well, let's obviously that's not the most recent game that we can talk about. There is one that was a non-match of the round, but one that we need to talk about, of course. It's the first loss of the season. It came up against a Norwest side who hadn't put any points on the board. They only scored 2 goals from their opening 3 games, and then all of a sudden they put 4 past you and kept their first clean sheet of the season. Now, Jamie, I'll start with you just because I want to hear what it was like out in the middle of the park. You were missing personnel on the day. And I understand it's difficult to talk about, particularly since it's so raw as well. It was just a couple of days ago. But what do you think went wrong out there? And was it preventable with the personnel that you had, or was it just a recipe for disaster? Sorry to put it like that, but was it?
Yeah, I mean, we had a bit of a setback during the week because Ella, our keeper, she actually hurt her fingers. She bruised them and was pretty much told that she couldn't play goals this week. So we did have to sort of change things up. We had our under-18s keeper fill in for us. And she did really well considering, but I think, having Ella in goals, we might have conceded a little bit less, just based off her experience and but in terms of on the field as well, we were a bit stretched for our back line. We did have our left back out as well with an injury. And also one of the girls that normally fills in for the left back wasn't there. So we did have to change some of the players around, and I guess adapting to that is a little bit harder. But at the end of the day, I think too, we just sort of didn't have the same sort of gelling that we had against Parkley and previous teams. Like, it just seems like on the field we were just struggling just to sort of get the passes through, and we sort of just panicked and it just felt like a bit of kick and chase. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think it was probably a good score to get now in like early on, because it's sort of, I guess, is a bit of a wake up call. And I think having this score will sort of, probably put more effort in and hopefully train harder so we can come out, next week and even this week and hopefully produce a win result in the game. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That was really well put. Obviously, I wasn't aware of who the absentees were, but goalkeeper is probably the most difficult position to not have your number one choice in any sport, in any particular position, in any sport in the entire world. So it's very difficult.
But to be fair, I mean, like, we probably didn't show them the respect they deserved, and I think we were too focused on the scoreboard for the last 3 matches, and I think that played a big part of why we didn't perform as well. I think, you could look at the goalkeeper, but at the end of the day, she did her best, and it was, there was a couple of long range goals, obviously, but at the end of the day, I think we didn't create enough either up front. We hadn't ever been down in a game, so like I think even like the trial games, with probably the exception of one, we'd never actually not scored the first goal, and I wasn't sure how the girls would react not scoring the first goal and them scoring the first goal, and we didn't react probably as well as I thought we might have, and I think that had a lot to do with our inability to get the result we wanted. Our reaction wasn't up to scratch, and look, as like Jamie said, I think what's important is I would have hated that score towards the end of the season. I can live with it at the early part of the season. It means we have to go back to the drawing board in certain areas and have a look at our play and how we play against certain teams. And we also, as I said, you just can't look at the it's unlike the Premier League where you can see every team playing. You don't necessarily see every team playing. We don't know if they were short players leading up to the last 3 games. If they recruited any new players, we just don't know. So I mean, like, I think not showing them the respect that we should have was probably the key to the loss, and not really anything else. So yeah.
That's really well put, and rather quite honest as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's done a lot of reflecting, so that's very good. And it's great that you jump to the aid of your players, even if they're not usually your players and their fill-ins. That's very, very good and admirable, certainly. funnily enough, this weekend, up again in a match of the round. Must be feeling pretty normal to feature on the podcast and have to send me a team sheet 24 hours before and all that sort of stuff. But you've got Winston Hills Bears. Now, if you have watched their segments in the last 2 times that they've featured on, they featured on the most out of anyone so far. But they have struggled to hold on to leads. That's been their thing, which, having gone off what you've just told me, particularly if you include your trial matches as well, you guys tend to score first. So that could be something that's in your advantage, certainly. In saying that, they've just had a draw in their own matches around up against Kellyville, who are top of the table right now, with Holroyd still to catch up with 1 game still. But they are top for a reason. So for them to have a draw against them is very, very decent. In your opinion, Mario, we'll stick with you. Do you think this is the right time to face a winless team, or is this actually now off the back of that most recent results, is this now more difficult to face them now?
I think for me, and any coach will tell you, when you have a loss like we did, the thing you want to do is get on the park as quick as possible, because like dwelling over it for a week, and I have to be honest, the last 3 or 4 days, it's just been mental carnage for me. I've been thinking of all the different scenarios and how I can make this better with the squad we've got. And so getting on the park as soon as possible is to me, like, it's critical. And we, I can't wait to get back on the park, whether it's Winston Hills, whether it's Kellyville, whether it's whoever, it doesn't matter. And I think, what we do take from the last weekend is that we got to treat everybody with the same respect. I mean, like, it doesn't matter that the fact they're scoreless, but like they've had a draw now. But I mean, like a draw against Kellyville, that's no mean feat. I mean, they've, Kellyville, a bit of the benchmark for everybody, because nobody knows what to expect from the Blacktown clubs, I guess. But I think, the big thing is getting on the park as soon as possible, trying to work on the things that we do at training, and try and get that out of our mind, because as I said, it's to me, it's in the past. I want to forget about it, and I just want to get back on the park and start playing good footy again. So,
yeah, Jamie, I'll go to you for this. Everybody at the start of the season told me we want to make top 4, we want to progress as a squad throughout the year, we want to do X, Y, and Z. You guys are actually sitting right on / above mid-table just by 1 spot, so you're actually doing quite well. Actually, no, you'd be right on, so 5th, I do believe. So just 1 spot outside of that top 4, which is, again, that's what everyone's goal was, and that's despite the fact that you haven't actually picked up a 3-point haul yet. Having seen how these first couple of games have gone, having played against half the teams already, are you looking at how you've gone so far and you're happy with how the season started, or are you looking to still make a couple of big improvements? What about for you, Jamie, out in the field?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's always room to improve. Like, we've gotten 3 draws, we've had a loss. In terms of the way we've started, I think apart from the loss, we've done quite well. And even then, like, we can't expect to win every game, like, especially, if we have injuries, or even if we just don't put our mind to it. Because again, like my dad was saying, we've got to respect everyone. Everyone's going to be a tough competition this year, because everyone here is playing Premier League, so they want to win. And, so I just think that, we've done all right. I think there's room to improve. And as the season goes on, like, we will hopefully get better. In terms of like what position, like, obviously we're always going to aim to hit top 4 and go as high as we can. And I think the start we have is pretty decent, and I think we still have a chance of doing that. It's only early on, so we can try, this week and with the teams we've got coming up, to try and get the 3 points. And then when we come against the teams that we've already versed into the next lot of games, we can come back and try and improve on our result previously.
For sure. And Mario, from your perspective, just to wrap things up with the last question of this segment, what sort of, okay, let's go with this. One sort of positive thing that you've learned about your team in terms of something really good, maybe it's an off the field thing or a training or an attitude thing. What's one thing that jumps to your mind as a massive plus, and what's one thing that you're sort of looking at as a spot to improve perhaps?
I think the plus is they're young, so they've got a long future if they really put their minds to the game. I mean, when you look at some of the teams we're playing and you look at the people that are winning the Man of the Match awards, they're experienced players that have played for many years, and so one thing we're blessed with is they're all pretty much local juniors, and basically have got a big future ahead of them if they just knuckle down. I think that's the plus. The negative is probably our squad is not as big as we'd like it to be. I think we did expect that being in the Premier League we would attract a lot more players from the Blacktown district that maybe didn't fit in some of the other squads, or there would have been more effort to trial. We actually started trials early in November, and we didn't get the people through. So that probably, with injuries starting to happen, that may be the big negative for us, is that we lose a critical player like we did in the last game, or a couple of critical players, that we don't have the depth to replace them, and that could possibly hurt us in critical games where we just can't afford to drop points. So, but yeah, look, it is what it is. Every team's in the same boat. So I mean, all you can do is work with the roster you've got, and hopefully we can get through the first season and do well enough that it encourages people to come back, but also encourages new people to come into the squad as well. So
again, another example of you being very aware of your surroundings. And I noticed in one of your previous answers, you said that the loss had been playing on your mind for a couple of days. So I can promise you, as someone who's been talking to people in these coaching positions for a couple of years now, this park football thing is meant to be low key and relaxed, but it seems to just really eat away at people's lives. So you're not alone in that boat. That's all good. If you are staying up late at night and tossing and turning, that's totally normal. It's all part of the fun. But I'm very happy that you were open and honest about that. Guys, ahead of 3 p.m. Sunday, I should say, when you do come up against Winston Hills, I wish you again the best of luck. It's great to have you back just outside here as well. Can't wait to see you guys and say hello as well. But as usual, great answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
For the penultimate time, I will say this in this episode. Welcome back. Time for some AYL results. Away to Manly, the 13s went down 6-1, unfortunately, but then the 14s won 4-1, the 15s won 2-0, the 16s did lose 2-1, and the 18s lost by the same scoreline as the 13s to end the day on a pretty sour note. An off day for them, as I've been told. With Spartans, the men had Rydalmere 2 games, 2 goals in those 2 games, 2 wins, 6 points, 2-0 in the 20s, 2-0 in the first grade. How many times can you say 2 in a sentence? Certainly more than 2. Pretty huge weekend, though, against the former club of our first grade coach. Apia was the objective of the girls, and even though it was a 0-all in reserve grade, a 2-1 loss in the first grade was one that displayed a good and gallant performance, but it didn't go our way. A fun game nonetheless, to be fair. Onwards to last night, though, a decent little away trip for the boys who progress out of the preliminary rounds of the Australia Cup. Central Coast United 2, Blacktown Spartans 4, 2 goals in the last 3 minutes to grab and then seal the win. I was honestly so happy. I shouldn't be yelling that loud that late at night. Sitting in my little car doing the social media post was pretty cool, and I had a really good time doing it. Right, the final interview of the day, Maddie and Jason from Winstow. We're becoming a bit of a broken record, but for all the right reasons on the Blacktown Football Hour podcast, I'm joined by Maddie and Jason, vice captain and coach of Winston Hills Bears' Premier League women's side. They're here to join us again for another Women's Premier League match of the round. This time they'll be at our wonderful complex at BFP, and they'll be up against Quakers Hill Juniors, who you would have already seen because they're the home side, so they're up first in the podcast. It's great to have you guys on once again. A really good result that's happened most recently for you guys. So it'll be good to unpack that a little bit and ahead of a game up against one of our biggest and most followed teams. But just generally, as I always ask guys, how are you feeling? How are you going?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having us on again.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's good to see you again.
Yeah.
Of course, always a pleasure as well. So a 1-1 with Kellyville. I'm sort of sick of saying that it's everybody's favourites because, to be perfectly honest, Holroyd could very well leapfrog them this weekend, and they're a very good side. Both of those two are very good sides, and to be honest, they are looking beatable, and you guys have been one of the reasons why they are looking more beatable this year, which is great because the competition's getting closer, and what we want is a really close comp. In saying that, you guys haven't picked up your first 3 points of the year just yet, but it's fine. We're in such early days of the season; it's okay. Neither have your opposition this weekend, for example. But talk to me. We'll start with you, Jason, regarding that game. What you noticed in that 1-1. Was it again a case where you had the lead and then it went away? Tell me all about it.
No, it was a really good game. Both teams were very, very even. We had a lot of possession early on in the game and did control the game, but there was still not really any shots until actually Kellyville had a shot. Probably, I think it was the 30th minute, I think it was. It was a really good strike by Bianca Hogan. She's a very good player. We saw her in the first game, what she did against Marion. So we sort of did highlight the emphasis that we had to put on her and being really tight. And it showed in the game that she only had that one chance, but she took it. But I was really pleased with our girls, how we sort of man-marked her out of the game a little bit more, that she had to play in different positions during the day. We were very, very happy with the result. We did score late. But it was well-deserved, the draw. We really gave Kellyville a little bit more pressure than what they've been used to. We were very much a high intensity because we had kept the ball for a long time. So we were still running, whereas they were starting to slow down in the end. So I think, in a way, we're sort of unlucky not to get the 3 points.
Definitely.
Yeah. Sorry, please go for it.
Sorry, I just wanted to echo exactly what Jason said. I think it was a really, as we said last week, we expected them to bring the competition to us, and hopefully they expected us to bring the competition to them. And I think we did ourselves a solid by doing that. I think we gave them a good, strong, hard game right until the final whistle. As Jason said, we were lucky to get pretty much a last-minute goal, which really, really lifted our girls' spirits. Although it was last 2 or 3 minutes. Honestly, it felt like a win to me personally. I know it was something really special for the other girls as well, because we knew there was a lot hanging in the balance for this game. So, really, really happy with the result.
Very good. And I've been thinking to myself in the build-up to the game, if you'd score first, what would your approach be? Had you not learnt your lessons, but had you learnt a little bit or adapted how you would approach a game if you took the lead? I didn't have to think about that because you guys had to do the chasing in this game, and it was a bit different. And having watched it back, I didn't get to watch it live, which is a shame. So I knew the result by the time I had watched it. But when I did watch it, I was thinking, yes, absolutely, there was a chance for you guys, as Jason said, to pick up the 3 points. And it was a really good game at the end of the day. And it's fantastic to see. You guys should be proud of them. And it's good to hear that you guys really enjoyed the feeling of what, when 1 point can feel like three through perseverance. So very good to hear. Now, moving on to this weekend, you'll be here on the synthetic. You'll be up against Quakers Hill Juniors. Now, Jason, I know you've watched this game, and from everything that from all the experiences I've had interacting with you over these Zooms the last 3 times, it's that I know you're very intrinsically tied to making sure you know what's happening before these games start. It wouldn't be the first time that I said to Quakers Hill coach Mario, his name is, I said to him, even though it's just park football, you can become way too invested. And I can tell you're one of those people who throws everything in, all the effort. So what did you, hopefully you're not tossing and turning at night, but what have you noticed about Quakers Hill Juniors from the game up against Clarkley? And reveal what you're willing to reveal, because I'm sure they'll watch this and listen to what you have to say as well.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with Quakers Hill. They're very similar to us. They've got a very young squad as well. They had a couple of standouts too in that game. There was I can't remember the young girl's name. There was a centre back. She was very good during the day, and there's I think the captain was very good as well. She led from the front. She was very, very physical. She set a sort of standard for the Quakers Hill girls. They were very quick in transition going forward, very direct. That's something that I noticed pretty quickly. They like to counterattack very quickly, and they don't worry about build up and trying to keep possession. It's quickly get down that other end and get to their strikers pretty quickly. So I think I see a few weaknesses. I see their weaknesses probably on the fringe, on the outside. So I think we will continue to attack that with our formation that we have and with the speed that we have. So I think we'll be in a very tough game with them. But because we've only had a few games together as a new squad, we're improving consistently and very quickly, and it showed against Kellyville on the weekend, and I expect further improvement again.
Yeah, very good. If you do have the same opinion as me, I don't have a coaching license or a degree at all or any experience, but it was probably the number 5 for Quakers in defence. Her name was Leah. She was a standout for me. I'm not sure if we're talking about the same person,
Yeah,
but I thought
the brunette at the back. Yeah, she was awesome.
Yeah, wonderful work. And Jamie in the middle of the park was very good. And I remember I made a comment about when she moved up further up the pitch, a bit higher average starting position later in the game. She was also way more effective as an actual number 10 as well. I'm not revealing anything. That's just what I said the day, so you can hear that. I'm not disclosing any secrets. I'm not getting secretly paid more by Hills or anything to reveal that to you. I'm just letting you guys know what I said. That's to protect my lawyers and everything. Anyway, so
People was very good as well. She had a really good game as well. She gave great distribution as well throughout the game as well. So the keepers, I've noticed that it's a high standard as well too. That there's no real weak keepers at the moment that we've noticed, and we've played all the top teams at the moment that are on the ladder. So that's a good thing for us, I think, in a way too. Now with that pressure has made us get to a stage where what kind of level we need to be at.
Now, Maddie, I do want to ask you the final question of the day, and that's just about the feeling of turning the 1 point into 3 this week. Now, the funny thing is, coming off the back of a 4-0 loss for Quakers Hill last week, which was, as you'll hear me say when you do watch this back, it was completely unexpected considering the performance against Parkley the week prior, that match the ground that I covered. I wasn't expecting that, but for you guys to have a sort of opposite performance in that you were down throughout the game and then you came back to win, to tie it late. The momentum is on your side. The ball is in your court. So does it feel like the camp, at least in training, does it feel like you guys are getting closer to that first 3-point haul of the year?
Absolutely. I think it's within arm's reach. We just have to tighten a few loose ends to get there. And I think this weekend is a really good opportunity for us to do that. We all know individually what we're needing to work on, which I think is important, as well as knowing what we have to work on as a team. But absolutely, I think we can definitely snag the 3 points this weekend if we just got to go out there and give it absolutely everything. And as I said to my girls on the weekend before our game, I said, leave nothing behind. I said, leave it all out in the field, and whatever the result is at 90 minutes, that's what it is. And I think our girls, we showed a lot of heart and tenacity on the weekend, so we can only just build on that and take it into Sunday's game.
Great team talks, it sounds like, and leading from the front and in the dressing room, Maddie, which is what I've heard throughout my time in my job here, and you're very good at that. It will be fantastic to actually get to watch you in person and cover your game finally, having spoken so many times on the Blacktown Football podcast in weeks and months gone by. Guys, as per usual, wonderful guests and wonderful answers as is becoming the norm. It'll be a little bit while in between drinks between this and the next time that we have you guys on. I actually can't remember the next time that we have you guys on, but it is certainly a little bit less frequent than what it is at the moment. Yep. Thank you so much for featuring on so much recently.
No, thank you for having us. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. See you guys.
See ya.
That's all we have time for this week. Thank you so much for watching the Blacktown Football Hour podcast, episode 9. Like, share, and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. I hope you've all had a fantastic week. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Hope you have all the best of luck in your games this weekend and on Friday night as well. My thoughts are with Arsenal fans during this depressing time for them. And remember, cue the outro music.